Hello, everybody. My name is Perpetua Mundi, and today is World CP Day, World Cerebral Palsy Day. And I thought of creating something that will be able to help anyone working with any child with cerebral palsy. It can be a caregiver, it can be a parent, it can even be a primary caregiver, someone with just a child, or working with the child with cerebral palsy, or staying with a child with cerebral palsy. So when I was thinking about the content, I thought about what can I share that will help anyone working with the child with cerebral palsy, and in the long run, even help the child with cerebral palsy. And the thing I came up with was how to help the child be positioned well throughout the entire day, and which positions and which guidelines can be able to guide us even when you're positioning these children. Uh, which positions would the child be comfortable in? Which one would be not comfortable? And what would be the guiding factors to decide what is comfortable, what is not? So allow me to share my screen. We get to see what are the guidelines of these positions. So by and large, positioning really impacts the child's development. Positioning impacts how they go through their day, how they're able to interact with the environment around them. So positioning does that, okay? So, good. Yeah, so positioning, there we go, there goes my screen. So positioning does affect how children interact with the environment. When you think about a child with cerebral palsy or your own child who has cerebral palsy, think about the position they're currently in. They might be sitting, they might be lying down, sideline, they might be lying facing up, yeah? So when you think about that position, think about the level of activity they can be able to do while in that position. Is that position encouraging movement? Is it encouraging play? Is that position, if they were to feed, appropriate for feeding? So when we think about positions, we have to think about what can this child achieve in this position. So let's just jump right straight to it and look at the objectives. So first, we're supposed to get to understand why is it important to correctly position a child. And I've just read saying a bit of the ideas of why we need to correctly position a child. And then I'm going to share a bit on which considerations should we have, or some guidelines should we have during positioning. And we are going to discuss some ideal carrying positions. Yeah. So importance of correct positioning. One, it aids in child development. If a child is well positioned throughout the day, they will try reach for something, they will try grab a spoon, grab a cup, they will try play and engage with their hands, both hands. So positioning does help in child development. In activities of daily living such as feeding, dressing, and toileting, positioning does simplify it for you and for the child. So if you position a child in such a way that they can be able to sit and feed themselves well, correctly positioned, it makes it easy for them. And also for you, if the child can't feed themselves, if they are well positioned, you're even able to feed them better and faster. Then positioning prevents pressure areas. Pressure areas develop because when a child is frequently positioned on one side and there's pressure on their body, there are some sores that can come about, but it doesn't start with the sore, it starts with some reddening, and then the sores develop. So when you position them well, they were able to prevent the pressure areas and then prevent the pressure sores that at times we see in children. Another thing that positioning helps is prevent contractures. So when a limb is held in one position for long, sometimes there is a contracture. The body and the tendons are just stuck in one place, if I can simplify it. So you find that even stretching that hand can be hard. And sometimes the contractures are bad in such a way that they require release in terms of surgery. So to be able to prevent the contractures, one has to correctly position their child. Then also positioning aids in preventing deformities. So we see that deformities do develop, especially on the back. So the back might be crooked or hooked. So sometimes this comes about because of poor positioning. So when we correctly position our children, you'll find that we'll prevent so many things and we'll be able to help them. As they go older, they will have no deformities, they will have no contractures, there will be no need of surgeries. So it is really important that we have to position them well. And it is important that you know the how. Yeah. And the other thing positioning does, it simplifies pickup and carrying of the child and handling of the child. So when they're well positioned, it's easy for you to just pick them up and take them to the next place. It's easy for you to carry them, and it's easy for them to handle them in terms of if you want to dress them, in terms of if you want to change them, in terms of if you want to play with them. So handling them, you can be able to easily, and it simplifies the process. So here is a table that will give us some helpful tips on positioning. So we see that in supine means when the child is lying on their back. So what we need to consider here is that every child has, every individual child has their level of function and what they can be able to do. So as I share this, just consider your child's level of function, what they can be able to do currently, and apply it according to the level of function. So this is not a one fit all. It is just ideas that would give you in terms, as just a form of ideas that can help you when you're positioning your child. So the first one, when you see supine, means it's just lying on their back. So when the child is lying on their back and they have a form of head control, the head control means they're able to hold their head up well and it's stable. So the main point here for the head is to be comfortable and well supported. So no hanging when they're lying. Have a nice, if there's a pillow, put them on a good size of pillow, not too small, not too big. So just a good size of the pillow. Then the body needs to be straight. So we need to try as much as possible to align the spine. So this can be done with the help of towels on the side, so that you put the towels on the side and the child's spine is able to be straight. And then in terms of the legs and feet, there should be a bend at the hips. And then the legs should not be crossed, should be slightly open. And then the feet should be close to a standing position. So why are we saying that at the hip, it needs to be a bit bent? So we see from when you bend the hip, you'll find that it relaxes first the legs. So there'll be a bit of relaxation on the legs, and then a bit of relaxation of the muscles of the legs. And then you'll also find that there will be a bit of relaxation of the muscles on the lower back. So this position is very important. This is very important. When the hip is bent, it is truly important. Then we look at the next position, that is the prone. Prone means when they are on their tummy. So this one, I'd like to highlight that this position is not for every child. There are children who, because of the level of function and muscle tone, this position will not be ideal. So it is important to discuss with your therapist to be able to know, would this position be ideal? And if so, how can I do it? So with the prone position, the head should be in a straight line. And this one is very good for children who are developing their neck control. It hasn't yet gotten there. So they are trying to develop it. So when you place them in this position, they will try lift their head up, and that's perfect because they are working on their head control. Then the shoulders and arms should be in line or straight in front of the body. So they can be in line with the body or straight in front of the body. The part where I prefer when it's slightly in front, the arms, is because they'll be able now to engage. They'll be able to play. They'll be able to point. They'll be able to pull. So it will encourage their arms to move. Then in terms of the body and the spine, it needs to be in a straight line. Then the legs and feet should be straight. So if possible, try and find a way to straighten them, but don't force. So you can use techniques that you can be shown by a therapist, but don't force. Light weights can be put at the hip area, very light weights, and that a lightweight can be even a pillow or something that at the top of the hips, on top when they are lying on their back, now on top, you can be able to place a bit of weight so that they can be able to just go down. But remember, do not force, and the weight should be light. Then for when they're inside lying, that means that if they're either lying on their left or right, the head should be supported, and that means the support should be from the beginning of the head up here, from the top of the head to the chin. It should be well supported. And then the shoulder and the arms. So the lower shoulder and the arm should be brought forward. So this one will prevent any discomfort at the shoulder. And then both arms to be forward. So same thing, when both arms are forward, the child is able to play and the child is able to engage. And then the body needs support from the back, from the top of the head to the feet. So as you see, the back is supported. So the child has support at the entire back. Then the legs and feet, so bend one leg. So the leg that is bent is the one that is at, when they're lying on the side, the one that is below. And then you straighten the other ones. That's the top one. So there should be padding between the knees. Then this padding between the knees now prevents the pressure areas. So this now helps the child not to have any pressure on their knees when they're in this position. So this position is great and it is recommended when the child is sleeping. They can also be placed in this position. However, you need to change this position every half an hour so that the child doesn't get tired on one side. The next one is when the child is sitting with the caregiver. So when the child is sitting with you, you need to support their head. If they have head control, that's perfect. You don't need to support their head. But if they don't, you need to support their head. And that one is done by when your arm cuts across on this part. So at the back, your arm cuts across there, and you're able to support their head. And the body and the spine, where the child has no great core strength, the child needs support at the chest and at the hips. So you need to hold them in such a way that they are supported at the chest and at the hips. And the shoulders should be slightly forward, hence the arms will be in front of the body. And the legs and feet bent at the hips and at least at right angle, if possible, support the feet. So the same thing with the hip is that when it is in this position, it encourages there's less stiffness on the legs and also less stiffness of muscles at the back. Then if the child is sitting independently on a chair, then their head needs to be upright and the shoulders and arms, they need to be supported and they should be slightly forward in front of the body. So this means that the child's arms need support. And what can happen with this is when you have modification on their sitting space, if it is a wheelchair, you can actually have a tabletop. So the tabletop enables them to have their arms supported. And then for the body, the back needs to be straight and the gluteal region needs to go all the way back to the very back of the chair. And then the lap strap should be tight enough to prevent sliding down. So when the child slides down, we usually see their back, it makes a letter C. So this is highly discouraged because the posture is not helpful for the back and the posture is not building their core strength. So anytime you see a child with cerebral palsy sitting, if they're having a C shape on their back, try and find a way to create a position in such a way that the C disappears and it becomes an S where possible. Then the legs should be supported. So also modification, have a footrest. If they're just sitting on a surface, ensure they have something that is propping up their legs so that their leg is supported. Then the next one is sitting on the floor. For children who have been able to achieve great level of independence and they're able now to sit, we need to consider how they sit on the floor. Why? Because we need to consider how their hips and knees are taken care of. So we see sometimes some children, when they sit, they have the W position. So there's the inward turning of their feet and the legs. So when there's this inward turning, we find that the hips and the knees are the ones that greatly get impacted with that sitting position. So it is recommended that their head is straight and their spine and their body is well straight, and then their legs and feet should cross or they stay straight. So they can stay cross-legged or they can have their straight leg. But what we need also to consider when the child is sitting on the floor is their strength. If the child is able to sit through the activities, it's perfect. But if not, after some time, consider the backrest support. Then when you're carrying the child, you need to consider the following things. The head should be comfortable and well supported. The spine should be straight. The feet and the legs we need to consider. And the hip, there should be a bend, and the leg should be opened and not crossed, and feet close to a standing position. So if I can give an example, in our settings, you'll find that we carry our children on our backs. So when we carry our child with cerebral palsy on our back, there are those who have enough flexibility at their hips and they can be able to be carried in that position. So what we need to consider is where we put the lasso or the fabric. Remember, it needs to support their head. So put it slightly up of the head, and then they're able to now have that support and they're able to be carried. If you're walking for a slightly long distance, you can always remember to turn their neck if they don't have great head control, because sometimes they do get tired to hold their neck in one position. So those are just some highlights of what we can be able to how we can be able to carry and position. But I'd like to add just 2 points to this. One is, as a primary caregiver, you need to consider how you lift the child or pick them up from wherever they are. Your poor position when you pick the child and or your child can hurt your back, and we really need our back strong for such a long time in our life, because it is one thing that when there's a problem, you will find it very hard to work. So when you pick your child, it should be ergonomically friendly. So what do I mean by economically friendly? So I'll give you an example. This is a child who's lying on a mat. So maybe, for example, they have just finished their therapy session and the therapist says, oh, now it's time for you to go. So an economically friendly manner is like this. So you bend at your knees, you go down, you pull the child closer to you, and then during lifting, you use not only your back muscles, you use also the leg muscles. Your leg muscles, you like incorporate leg muscles during carrying. So this will be able to protect your back. So now all the weight is not going to the back, to your back. It is now distributed between your legs and your back. So that is one example of an ergonomically friendly manner. Then another thing I would like to highlight is that if your child experiences seizures, it is important to know that you can actually place them on the side. And if possible, they can be able to go to a recovery position that is perfect. So the head should be slightly elevated off the ground and then just position them on the side. So this will prevent any choking. This will prevent, this will make the child comfortable during the seizures, and even after the seizures, they can be able to be comfortable when they are recovering. So by and large, that was it for today. Truly glad. Feel free to comment, feel free to share this video to any other person, to parents, to institutions, and just to anyone who might be able to benefit from correct positioning of children with cerebral palsy. So I would like to say thank you for listening, and do feel free to subscribe, and have a great day ahead.